Welcome to your reading. So I would like to say a huge thank you to the subscriber who suggested this topic. Now I know everyone is going to be asking about a different situation, so I'm going to keep the messages pretty general. So you're going to have to be a little bit more, I guess, discerning about what applies to your situation and what doesn't, just because some of you could be asking about like, why didn't this romantic relationship work out? Why didn't this job work out? Why didn't I get that apartment? You know, it could be so many different things, but let's go ahead and get into it. So we have the Fool card here, which is the cat in this deck. We have the Ten of Sky or the Ten of Swords. We have the Six of Cups. We have the Sky Kitten. This is the Page of Cups. I'm sorry, not the Page of Cups, the Page of Swords in this deck. And we have the World card. What a pretty story here, okay? I love the way your cards are telling a very clear narrative from the first card to the last card that we have here. So Spirit is really saying, listen, this is kind of a situation where it was best for you to cut your losses because there's a new start. This is meant to be a new chapter for you. This wasn't something that was going to ever work out for you. And so Spirit is almost saying like, separate yourself from the responsibility of this. Like, don't take ownership over, I'm the reason why this didn't work out. Okay, like Spirit is saying, this isn't like an accountability issue. There was nothing here where it's like, well, group one, you didn't work hard enough, or group one, you should have done this, or group one, if you had done this, it would have turned out differently. No, like Spirit is saying, this, you gave everything that you could to this. You did nothing, like there's nothing here where you can take on personal blame. I feel like you may be really hard on yourself, or you may second guess yourself, or you may just look back a lot and wonder, you know, if I had done this, could I have avoided this situation? Or if I had approached it like this, or if I had only said this. I feel like you do that if only, if only, if only kind of mantra, and Spirit is saying, like you did everything that you could with this Ten of Swords. Like, it wasn't on you. You didn't deserve this. This wasn't, you know, some sort of like divine punishment, you know, like it's not your fault. This was just something that you were meant to learn from to prepare you for this new chapter. You know, it's like, okay, I'm going to pick up the pieces. I'm going to take, you know, the wisdom that I've learned from this. I'm going to use this to help myself in the future. This was definitely like your soul had a contract in this situation. You wanted to learn this lesson. Okay, now we're done with it. We're moving on. You know, so like, especially given that we have the Page of Swords here with the Sky Kitten, you learned your lesson. You gained wisdom from this situation. And I feel like Spirit is almost like, pause a little bit here, slow down a little bit. And I feel like rather than reflecting on the situation to the point to where you're ruminating on it, like you're really fixating on it, and you're kind of obsessing, like woulda, shoulda, coulda, you know, that kind of mentality of like, again, like if only, if only, if only, if only I had done this. There was no avoiding this situation because you were meant to learn something from it. You know, like with the Six of Cups here, there was some kind of like soul lesson that you were meant to get from this. So don't feel like, if only I had done this, I could have avoided the entire thing. No. You were meant to learn that lesson, and that's okay, right? Like we all have challenging cycles or difficult things that happen to us. We all have our cross to bear. We all have our hardships, right? So you were just meant to learn this lesson, and thank goodness you did. And now you can walk away from it having that wisdom and having sort of, I guess, the peace of mind and knowing that you don't have to go through that lesson again, of knowing the past doesn't have to repeat itself again. Now, if you choose to do that in the future, okay, you know, like you have free will if you choose a similar situation in the future, but you're not, there's no, like the contract has been fulfilled, you know what I mean? Like karmically, it's not going to happen to you again. There's nothing like, there's not going to be any future divine intervention that forces you into a similar situation, okay? So unless you choose to go back that way, unless you choose to regress, then yeah, it could happen again. But if you're not choosing it, it's not going to happen again, okay? So don't feel like you're unlucky and this is going to keep happening to you. Like you learned your lesson, we're done with it. And to go from like the very first card in the major arcana, card 0, the Fool card, and then here we're ending with the World. That's why I said it's a very beautiful transition. And with the 10 of Swords, like you have been through it. You have been put through the ringer. So to see so much light coming in for you, to see this kind of almost like reassurance from Spirit that even though you're not where you want to be now, you will get there with the World card. You know, and yeah, it may be a little bit of a journey still, but it kind of gives this feeling with the Six of Cups, like you're halfway there. You're halfway there. And, you know, if you take one more step, you're more than halfway there, you know? And so I think perspective really makes a difference here. It really does. I mean, your attitude about this really determines a lot. And so I was actually speaking with my friend about this yesterday, and I'll just give a little bit of a personal example here, but I've had a really difficult relationship with my mom over the course of my life. Like she had me when she was 19, and I've always had a close relationship with my grandmother though. And I know part of the reason why my mom has certain behaviors is because of her relationship with my grandma. And my grandma has also been hurt by my mother. So it's just like this whole generational thing, and it has to stop somewhere, right? So if I continue to carry this like anger or resentment towards my mom, if I have children one day, I could pass that on to my daughter, and then it would just keep going. Someone somewhere has to forgive and let go and make peace with it so it doesn't continue to perpetuate, so that I don't project my issues with my mom onto my daughter one day, because that's what my mom did to me. And it just keeps going. So someone has to stop it. And so I feel like, you know, with the Six of Cups being here and this Page of Swords, this doesn't have to continue to perpetuate in your life. And it can stop. You can make that decision to cut this off and say, I'm not going to be the one to continue to carry this out. And so, you know, sometimes I think, I kind of forgot where I was going with this. Oh, I remember. And so I was speaking to my friend about this, and I said, you know, sometimes it's hard for me to talk to my grandma because she'll bring up ways that she's been hurt, you know, by my mom, and it kind of reignites my own issues with my mother because I have compassion for my grandma, but it's like this weird space. And so, you know, it's difficult because I don't want to feed into that. I don't want to go back to that angry place, even though I empathize with what my grandma is saying to me. And so it's like this weird middle place. And so, you know, I think continuing to fixate on this or continuing to look back at it so much. Like, take the lesson, take the wisdom, but don't let thinking about it or reflecting on it become an obsession or become a habit or become, again, where you're ruminating instead of reflecting. Like, really kind of separate yourself from this, almost like when you're reading a book. Like, I finished this chapter, I'm not going to look back. You know, where's the story going? Let's look at the progression here. And I think if you're not careful, you can continue to pick at these scars and reopen those wounds. And so I think that would be the one thing here that could slow down this progression to you getting to the World card, to you getting to this place of like looking out almost at your life and just feeling the sense of like peace and contentment for where you are, the sense of like rightness with the world and your place in it. What could slow down this progression would be if you reopen those wounds, if you keep looking back, if you keep picking at it, if you keep analyzing it. And again, I think give yourself the freedom, have the peace of mind of knowing this was an inevitable thing in your life. There was nothing you could do to avoid it. It was purely like a soul contract kind of thing. And you have learned from it. And say thank you for the lesson, and then just keep moving forward, because you are on the right path at this point in time. You are. Even though it doesn't feel like it, even though it feels like you've been backed into a corner, even though it feels really scary. I mean, even the Fool card, like, yes, this is a very positive card, but it's also carries kind of like this nervous energy to it, because it's like, you really don't know what's coming next, you know? It's a brand new start. And so there you can look at that brand new start like, oh, there's all of these beautiful possibilities for me now. It's a blank slate. I'm so excited. Or you could look at it from the perspective of, oh no, I don't know what's coming next. I don't have it all figured out. Oh no, oh no, oh no. And be really scared and almost like paralyzed by that. But I mean, how many of us really know what's coming down the line anyway? Like, we really trick and fool ourselves into thinking that we know what comes next, or we fool ourselves into thinking if we make certain decisions, we know the outcome 100%, and we really don't. We have our best guess. And even with tarot, right? Like, this only tells us as much as Spirit wants us to know at any given time. I'm sure there's a lot that Spirit holds back from us. That's why the Moon card exists in the tarot deck, right? Like, there's just certain things that we're not meant to know, and we're just meant to have faith and to keep pushing forward and trust that we're being divinely guided. And so I think that's a secondary message here of, you know, the leap of faith that we talk so frequently with the Fool card. I'm sure many of you are familiar with that expression in relation to the Fool card if you've been watching tarot readings for a while, but there's an element of that here too. Like, you have to sometimes roll the dice and just trust that, you know, if something wasn't meant for you, there was a higher purpose to that, right? And for you all, again, it was the wisdom. There was something about this situation that you needed to learn, a really hard lesson. This was a hard lesson. This wasn't like, I don't know, this is, with the Ten of Swords here, this is something that obviously cut you very deeply and cut you multiple times. Okay, this was a situation that burned you more than once. This was a person that stabbed you in the back more than once, right? If we're talking about a relationship. But again, it can be multiple things in your life, but this wasn't just one incident or like one loss. This was something that was either so big it hurt you in many different ways, or a bunch of little disappointments, a bunch of little hurts that added up to you just feeling the sense of apathy and disconnection. And yeah, I mean, it's a test of faith is what it is with the Ten of Swords, 100%. Okay. The Six of Cups, by the way, carries a very sweet, nostalgic kind of energy to it. So you are going to be getting into a place where it's a gentler cycle, calmer waters, feeling like a kid again, feeling a sense of freedom, feeling a sense of excitement. So again, I think your perspective on this matters a lot. It does. Okay, let's continue. I wasn't expecting to get so deep with you guys. We have a new romantic cycle begins, new moon in Libra. We have a fiery climax approaches, full moon in Aries. And we have adjustments are required, third quarter moon. Yeah, I mean, there was something about this that was never the right fit for you. It was never the right fit. It doesn't matter if it was a career thing, a love thing, it just wasn't the right fit. It wasn't right for you. It may be right for somebody else, but it just wasn't meant for you. And I feel like there's an energy here of like, why settle? Why settle? And I think sometimes in life we don't realize how much we're compromising until we get so far away from our original goal. And I may have talked about this before on the channel, but I mean, I went through this myself, just to give some context here. And I'm gonna try to stop saying I'm sorry for giving examples, because someone called me out on a recent video about that, like, why are you apologizing so much? So I'm gonna try to stop doing that. But anyway, I had originally planned on getting like my PhD or my PsyD in psychology, and I was going to be a therapist. And then somewhere along the way, I was like, well, you know, maybe it would be more like cost effective, or, you know, maybe I should consider going into medicine, and then, you know, I can be a PA, or I can be a nurse practitioner, and I can work in psychiatry. And then it just was like a bunch of little decisions to the point to where I was so far removed from my original goal. And it didn't feel like that. It didn't feel like one major shift. It was just, again, a bunch of little compromises. And a few years down the line, I kind of looked around for a second and I was like, I am really deeply unhappy. I am really deeply miserable. And I had to find a way to get back to my original goal or close to it in a way that made sense. But it felt like at the time like a huge loss, like, wow, like I wasted all of this time because I was trying to be practical. I was trying to do what I thought I should be doing. And I think if we fall into that trap of what we think we should want, or what we should be doing, or what is practical, so much compromise in the name of practicality can be really soul crushing, and you end up just wasting more time. And so I feel like, especially with this adjustments are required, and then having this next to a fiery climax approaches, like something was going to give. And it was going to be you, you know? Like there's only so much you can take of not being on your path, of not being true to yourself, of not being honest to yourself. You can only lie to yourself for so long. And I think having that discomfort over time, it doesn't feel that bad when you make that first compromise, right? Or you stray from your path a little bit, it doesn't feel so scary. But over time, the further and further away you get from what you truly were wanting, what your soul was truly like seeking, you do, like you start to lose your sense of identity, you start to lose your way, and things feel really hopeless after, you know, a certain period of time. I think most of us are familiar with the example of like if you put a frog in boiling water versus if you put the frog in slightly warm water and you just turn the temperature up slowly over time, they don't recognize it, as opposed to be putting in boiling water right away. And I know that's like a really gross example, but you know, it's kind of like that. You know, like you slowly strayed from your path, or you made these compromises. And I mean, this applies really well too. We have a new romantic cycle begin. So some of you could be talking about your love life here, but if you were with a partner, and this again is just an example, but let's say you were with a partner who said, you know, like, why don't we just see where this goes? And you think, okay, but you're wanting a long-term thing, right? You're wanting a commitment. And they say, let's see where things go. And you're like, well, okay, yeah, I can be flexible. Let's see where it goes. And then you come back to them later and you say, okay, we've been doing this for a while. I'm still feeling good about it. let's be an exclusive relationship, or this is what I need. And they say, well, and they keep putting you off. They keep stringing you along, or they give you just enough to get you to stay. And so you keep making these compromises because they're giving you a little bit, but they're not giving you everything. And you think maybe if you stay in it long enough, they will give you everything. But it just never happens. And I've seen that with so many of my friends, but it's unfortunate, right? But I think all of those little compromises will kill your soul, if you stay in that long enough. And so I really like to see the fact that we have this idea of like having, I guess like settling for a cup that's half full with this moon card here, this third quarter moon, and then seeing this point of reckoning with the fiery climax. And this may have happened in your life, it may not have happened yet, but this is to me saying like something's got to give. And maybe it's already fell apart for you, maybe you're still in it, but something's got to give. Because you can't stay in this. You can't. Like I said, it's too soul crushing of a thing with that Ten of Swords. And so when that, I guess that dam breaks, right? When that point of reckoning comes, what is that new start for you? For a lot of you, it's going to be a new start in love. But even if we're talking about, like, let's say you came into this reading and you were asking about a career situation, right? Something that fell through. You may not have realized how that unhappy workplace situation or how that job opportunity falling through, how that was affecting other areas of your life. So let's say you're in a committed partnership, but you didn't realize how your toxic work environment was affecting your love life because you were bringing all that stress from work home, and maybe you were displacing your anger on your partner, or maybe you were so stressed that you weren't spending quality time with your partner and it was affecting your love life. And so this is spirit saying like that had to give, that had to go because it was negatively impacting you. And for others of you, this could be talking about part of why this didn't work out is because you were meant to be on a different path that was going to lead you to, a romantic partnership that was going to be fulfilling for you. So again, just apply it how it resonates, but we can see what's on the other side of this point of reckoning here is going to be a new start in your love life. And I think for many of you too, this is going to be a situation where you're going to start to feel like you can almost romanticize your life. You can find ways to be in love with your life again, which is a really good spot to be in, especially coming from that Ten of Swords. And the Six of Cups makes me think of romanticizing your life especially. So I like to see that for you as well. Okay. Getting a little bit out of order here. Okay. We have reward, paw it forward. Oh, I like that a lot. So what's on the other side of it? What's on the other side of this is going to be, I think, a mindset, a situation, I guess circumstances in your life are going to play out in a way to where you're not only happy and content, but you can sort of extend that goodwill to others because you have enough for yourself to be able to share with others. If you're really unhappy in your life, if there's something that is just draining you of your energy, something that is really just depressing you and causing you to feel that sense of apathy and disconnection, you're not in a space energetically where you can really show up for other people. Like you have barely enough good energy to save for yourself to get through your day, right? Like if you're just in survival mode, trying to like grin and bear it, white knuckle it, get through it, and every day you wake up with a sense of dread or a sense of just a heavy weight on your chest, on your shoulders, and you're carrying that around, that disappointment, that heartbreak, that hurt, those wounds, it's heavy, heavy energy. And you don't have enough, I won't say like you don't have compassion for other people, but it's like so much of it is already, I guess so much of almost like your so much of your energy, so much of your emotional and mental like capacity here is being fixated or focused or funneled into that one thing or that situation in your life that is not working out. And so it's not that you're selfish. It's not that you're, again, it's not that you're not someone who can be empathetic to other people, but it's just you become more self-involved as a result, because that thing that's not working out, or that person, that connection, that situation is causing you to be self-absorbed because so much of your energy is fixated on that and you're trying to figure it out. And so it's like, I don't have very much to give to other people because I'm just trying to get my own life together. And how can I even really be a light to other people when I feel like I can barely be that for myself right now? And so I think that's a really nice shift. And I've been in that myself. I mean, like, I've worked as a substance abuse counselor. I've worked in hospice. I've worked in a lot of positions where empathy, compassion is a big part of the job. And I felt there were times where I was just having to kind of fake it, and times where I was just trying to get through it, because I was there, but it was like I was phoning it in. I was like on autopilot, and I wasn't really present in the moment because my mind was somewhere else, and it's unfortunate. You don't want to feel that way in your life. You don't want to feel like you're phoning it in. You want to be able to be present for other people. And I think to have this situation come to a conclusion, to have it end, to have you redirected onto the right path for you, is going to give you so much freedom and space to be there for other people, I think, in a way that you haven't been able to be there for others in a really long time. Because this may be the first time in a long time where you're actually present in your life. You're not somewhere else mentally and emotionally. You're actually present. And that's what the Fool card represents. I mean, the cat is literally stopping to smell the flowers, being in the present moment, holding space for other people. And so that's a beautiful byproduct of this thing ending in your life and you being able to have this new beginning and to have this new lease on life, is that you're also able to now be there for other people, to extend compassion to other people, because again, it's not that you were being selfish, but mentally you were somewhere else. Okay, a mystery, embrace the unknown. We talked about this in the beginning of your reading, right? Like I was referencing the Moon card and how we can trick ourselves into thinking that we know the whole path, or we know the outcome of a certain decision, and we let that hold us back in a lot of ways. We say like, oh, well, we can't do that, because if I were to do that, X, Y, and Z would happen. We just assume that we know the outcome, and so we play it safe. And so I feel like Spirit is saying, because even this cat here is on a cliff, right? And the Fool card typically is someone walking off the edge of a cliff, and that's why we call it a leap of faith. That's what you're being asked to do. And to retain your hope. And I think also to give the universe a little bit of credit here. Your guides know what they're doing. Your soul knew what it was doing whenever it signed up for whatever contract it did. You knew the terms. And so I think trust that you can handle what is being given to you. And trust that if you ever stray from the path again, because you are human, it's going to be okay. You'll always be redirected back, one way or another. Focus, eyes on the prize. Yeah, definitely being more present. And I think, again, because we've talked a lot about compromise, remember what you want. Remember what your end goal is. Remember with the World card here, like, what is your vision for the future? And if you find yourself tempted to compromise again, consider, is that worth it? It's reminding me of a Lana Del Rey song where she says, Why have the best when I could have you? Why have the best when I could have you? Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't settle for what is convenient. Don't settle for what is here right now when you could have so much more later. They did a study, an experiment with children. I forget how old they were, but they told the children, listen, you can have 1 cookie now, or you can wait and have 3 cookies later. And I forget, and I may be getting the details wrong here, but it was a longitudinal study, and they looked into the future to see, and they had all of these different markers for success, right? And the children who waited had much better lives, had much better outcomes in their future than the ones who settled for the 1 cookie because they could have it right there and right now. So look at maybe where you might have some impulse control issues, or where you may have decisions that are fueled by anxiety and fear, because that can be a sticky trap to fall into as well, right? Like, we think that if we don't accept what is right there on the table, we won't have something better in the future, and so we settle because we think that's safer. And really that commits us to unhappiness, and it creates problems in the future because what you're settling for isn't sustainable, because it was never going to make you happy. And I'm not saying you have to look for or seek for perfection, because we know that doesn't exist. But ask yourself, is this worth the compromise? Am I settling too much here? And why am I feeling called to compromise? Why am I feeling this need to settle? Is it my fear talking? Is it my ego talking? Is it anxiety talking? Is it impatience? Why am I settling? And I am sure many of you have known somebody who has done this in their life. I think this especially applies to romantic situations. People don't want to be alone. People don't want to feel lonely. And if you kind of externalize or seek the validation in others that you should be giving to yourself, if you have a fear of being alone, or you don't know what to do with yourself when you're by yourself, you always feel the need to be with other people. I feel like we all know at least one person who's like this in our lives. You will always settle. You will always settle. You will always settle for Mr. or Mrs., Miss, whatever, who is right here, right now, rather than waiting for Mr. Mrs. Right. And so you don't want to settle or choose the thing that's convenient, right? You want to choose what's right for you, not what's perfect for you, because perfect doesn't really exist, but what is right for you. So I think those are questions to ask yourself in the future. Is this what I'm really wanting, or is this what I'm settling for because I'm afraid of this kind of thing? Okay. And I hope this doesn't feel like a lecture, but I feel like just by the topic of this reading, it's probably going to be one where everyone's spirit guides, everyone's spiritual team is going to come through and kind of speak pretty honestly, you know, because it's hard, right? Because we ask ourselves, like, I think when something doesn't work out or something doesn't go as planned, it's so easy for it to feel like a punishment, or it's so easy to feel like, why is this happening to me? I'm a good person. And it's easy to get frustrated, right? And so I just want to take a second to acknowledge that and validate that if that's what you're feeling. Okay, we have raindrops, take a chance on them. There's a lot here about like a leap of faith, taking a chance, taking a risk. We have library, take control of your own narrative. Okay, if some of you are asking about a love situation, I think that these two cards could be speaking to that, because this one here, she's being controlled like a puppet, right? And then in here, it's like as sort of more helpful, mutually supportive. We're both benefiting from this kind of situation. And so for some of you, I think this could have been a situation where you were being manipulated, where you may have felt like you were playing out someone else's fantasy, someone else's role, what someone else wanted for you. And it could have been a situation where someone was acting like they were helping you, but really they were trying to manipulate and control you. For some of you, that could have been the situation. But I think as well, if you feel like you're in a storm right now, if you feel like you're in murky waters, if you feel like things are really tough, there is going to be someone on this new path forward for you who is going to help you. So I think Spirit is saying, not only are we redirecting you here to the right path for you, but we're going to bring you help. So for some of you, because we did get a new romantic cycle is beginning, it could be a supportive romantic partner. For some of you, it could be a new best friend. For some of you, it could be a mentor who's going to help guide you on your career path. So just take it as it resonates. But I think Spirit really wants to reassure you that this new path forward isn't going to be a path that you're walking alone. You are going to have help. And even with the fairies here, not only are you going to have a person who is helping you, but you're also going to have that divine support as well. And of course, like, you know that, but I think it's easy to forget that. You're never walking alone, right? Like, Spirit is always with you. You're connected. You're always connected. Even if you feel like you're not, you are. And so I definitely feel like this new cycle that you're going to be entering into is definitely going to be one where you're going to feel more empowered, but you're also going to feel like you're reclaiming something that once felt lost to you. So if you felt like you lost a part of your identity, so maybe you've been feeling really disconnected from your creativity, or maybe you've been feeling really disconnected from your sense of optimism, or you feel like you haven't laughed in a really long time, not genuinely. Or you feel like it's been a long time since I have felt carefree. You're going to be reconnecting to that part of yourself that you feel like you've lost. So you're going to be reclaiming some aspect about yourself that you haven't felt in a really long time. Because there's an energy here of like, I miss that about me. I miss that. And I think especially for those of you who are asking, like, why didn't this connection work out? You know, even if it was platonic and it wasn't a romantic thing, if you're asking about that, I feel like this especially applies to you, because I think sometimes people can trigger us in a certain way, or if we're with the wrong person, whether it be romantically or in a friendship, they can kind of bring out the worst in us, or they can bring out a side to ourselves that we don't quite recognize, and that can be uncomfortable. And I think you've worked through that. And so it's time to come back home to yourself. And I think, again, that original vision that you had, because there's just this recurring theme throughout your reading of compromising too much, of settling too much. And I mean, genuinely, the universe wants to see you win. And I know it doesn't always feel like that, but they want to see you win. They do. Okay? All right, let's see. You have, again, like a lot about, I think I may have said rolling the dice at some point in this reading, but take a chance, leap of faith, the Fool card. Like, we've talked about this quite a lot, right? And now we have risk coming through. It says, take a chance. Every risk is a success when you're committed to learning and growth. That's the thing too. Like, your mindset, your perspective on this makes all the difference. Like, you can say, thank you for the lesson. I'm so grateful that I learned that, and I'm so grateful that I will never have to go through that again because I learned my lesson. Or you can look at it like, that was a punishment, that sucked, that was a waste of time, and take away nothing from it, right? Like, your perspective makes all the difference in the world when we're talking about why this fell through and what's on the other side of it. And we have sovereign, like I said, reclaiming your power, coming back home to yourself, reconnecting with a part of yourself that you felt was lost, that you felt like maybe you could never recapture. For some of you, it's like a sense of innocence with the Six of Cups. You know, when you had a feeling that like anything was possible, or you believed that your dreams could come true. How you felt about love, or how you felt about your ability to thrive in life before you got kicked, right? Before you got hurt. Okay, what does this say? You are the queen or king of your life. Treat yourself like royalty. I mean, I think this is really a situation where you have to say, I deserve better than this. And so why am I settling? Why am I compromising? And I think, again, separating yourself from the idea that this was all your fault, that you could have avoided it, that you could have done something differently. Stop punishing yourself for that. And just say, everyone has lessons they have to learn in life. This was mine. And I think feeling good about the fact that you overcame this, that you lived through it, and feeling good about how you have evolved as a result of it. I mean, really look at this like an exercise in self-development, because that's what it was. And you have evolved from it. I mean, from a page here, right? And now we're having king, queen. That's a huge transition. So give yourself some credit. Give yourself your flowers, you know? Pat yourself on the back. Clap for yourself like you deserve this, right? So, I mean, you're coming up on a really exciting, fun, adventurous time of your life. And you have a real chance, a real opportunity here to make something that's going to feel as good as this world card, where you can look out, enjoy the scenery, enjoy the peace of this moment, and know that you did this. You got yourself to this point. This is emotional fulfillment. This is, I made it. I did it. I'm on top, right? And I think that when the journey is harder, you appreciate it all the more when you get here. If you were just handed this in chapter 1 of your story, you would take it for granted. So you're gonna have so much gratitude. And not only that, but a real sense of accomplishment when you make it to this point. You know, and it depends upon, again, like what you're asking for as an individual. What is your soul calling you towards, right? This world card is not going to be the same for every single person watching this reading. But I think for most of you, it's never been a question of not knowing what you want, or not knowing deep down what's going to make you happy. It's just been a question of, do you feel like you deserve it? Are you willing to wait for it? And are you going to, I guess, avoid the trap that our ego can sometimes fall into? You know, our ego tries to protect us, right? And so I think that's why a lot of us do end up settling or compromising too much, because we're afraid of failure. We're afraid of the unknown. We're afraid that if we sit over here and we wait and we wait and we wait patiently, what we want is never gonna come. So we settle. We're like, well, you know, this person may not be perfect for me, or this person may treat me poorly, or this person may be unreliable, but, and we make excuses and we settle. And again, it could be talking about many different things here, but I think ultimately here, you were never meant to compromise to that degree. You were never meant to settle for this. There was something better and you're on your way to it, okay? All right, so I do want to end your reading. I've never done this before, but I thought this could be cool. So ask a question about this in your head, whatever is still lingering in your mind, whatever you feel like hasn't been answered in the reading. And then I'm gonna roll the die and we'll have our answer here. So you see it says yes, no, 4-leaf clover, and we have a question mark, the mystery. So we'll see what you get. So if you need to pause the reading and really focus on your question, go ahead and do so. But otherwise, I'm gonna roll the dice, and I am gonna roll it to the side here because this isn't gonna feel very sturdy. Okay, group 1, you have your question. What is the answer to group 1's question, please, Spirit? Okay, we got no. All right, so group 1, this was your reading. I hope that it was helpful, and I will see you in the next one. As always, I'm wishing you the very, very best, and hopefully the audio is better. Hopefully the setup is better. Still a work in progress in the new apartment, but we'll figure it out. Thank you for your patience. All right, take care, everybody. Welcome to your reading. So I would like to say a huge thank you to the subscriber who suggested this topic. So I know everyone's going to be inquiring about different things. So I would just advise to be really discerning about which messages you accept, which ones resonate, because again, I know just with the nature of it being a general reading, some of you could be asking about a career situation that fell through, an opportunity, a love thing, it could be many different things. So just take what resonates as always, but I wanted to give that quick disclaimer because I feel like that especially applies to this reading. But anyway, let's get into your cards, and then also at the end of your reading, if there's anything that is still unanswered for you or you just have a question on your mind, I'm going to roll this die here, and then you can get an answer to your question, but we'll do that at the end of your reading. Okay, so we have the Knight of Cups, we have the Magician, we have the Queen of Swords, we have the Queen of Wands, we have the Queen of Cups, the Two of Swords, and the Hermit. How cool is it that you got 3 queens in your reading? That's pretty wild. I mean, we're just missing the Queen of Pentacles here, which is pretty cool. But I think regardless of your gender or whether you identify with the divine feminine energy, doesn't really matter. I feel like ultimately this is saying here, this didn't work out because we wanted to empower you. We wanted you to see your potential here to make decisions where you feel like, especially with the Two of Swords here, where you feel like intuitively this is right, rather than feeling like you have to lean into your logic, right? Or lean into just what emotionally feels right. Like there's almost a feeling here of like in the past, or maybe just with this particular situation, you felt really torn, like, I have to listen to my heart. No, I should be practical and listen to my mind. No, I should go with my gut. Because with the Queen of Swords, this makes me think of processing things rationally, logically, making a pro-con list, really thinking it through. With the Queen of Wands, I think of someone going with their gut, going with their first impulse, and just taking action without much thought at all. With the Queen of Cups, I think of praying on it, meditating on it, trying to connect to your intuition or your guides, or trying to emotionally feel your way through it. And just really kind of following your heart. So all of those are very different approaches, right? All of them are different. And all of them could potentially lead to different outcomes. But I feel like Spirit is almost kind of pushing you with the Hermit card here to go through this sort of like spiritual up-leveling and say, why does it have to be like one way or another? Why can't I integrate these approaches to make the best possible decision for myself? Because I think for some of you, you have the ability here to be in your Queen of Swords. You have the ability to be in your Queen of Wands, your Queen of Cups. But rather than that being a strength of yours, it's almost been to your detriment, because it keeps you from making any kind of decision and taking action, because then you get torn. Should I listen to my mind, or should I listen to my heart, or should I go with my gut? And so it's like all of these aspects of yourself are making some good points and have their own benefit, right? But it's almost like Spirit is wanting you to say, instead of like these different aspects of yourself kind of arguing and competing for attention, what if you integrated these approaches to where you can call on certain energies for certain situations that demand it? So there could be like a situation in your life where you would benefit from using logic over emotion. And there may be certain aspects of your life that would benefit from going with your gut and taking action rather than sitting and thinking about it for a long time, right? And I feel like Spirit, again, like wants to empower you, wants you to see that you can make good decisions, that you don't have to second guess yourself so much or feel so uncertain or question whether you even have the ability to make a decision where you're gonna feel like all of these aspects of you are happy. Because that may be part of the problem as well. Like, you may make a decision where your heart feels good about it, but your mind is still screaming at you that you made the wrong choice, and that affects you, you know? Or you may act with the Queen of Wands on something, go with your gut, and then that second guessing yourself comes in, and you're like, emotionally, does this feel right? Is that my intuition? Is that my anxiety? And then you get paralyzed, right? And so it's like, I took the first step, but now I'm afraid to see it through, because now I'm second guessing that step and maybe I should go back. And so you see how that could hold you back in life. And so I feel like that's the process you're going through. You are the keeper of these cards with the Magician, right? You have more power than you think. And I think for some of you, especially if you watch a lot of tarot readings, that could get you turned around as well. Because listen, like anything in life, and I've said this before, but like anything in life, if it's used in excess, or if you go into something using it with the intention of escapism, or with the intention of almost like bypassing your own power, your own decision-making ability, you want someone externally to tell you what to do, to help you make that decision, but it's almost like you want to remove your, by almost like removing your personal decision-making power and saying like, tell me what to do, God, Spirit, anyone, right? Even someone close to you in your life. If you give all of that decision-making power away, you are, right, taking away your own personal power. And so Spirit is saying, like, please don't think of us as the judge and the jury here. Don't feel like you're going to be condemned if you end up making, quote unquote, a wrong choice here. Or with this situation not working out, don't feel like this is some sort of punishment. And that issue came up in group 1 as well. But don't feel like that. You have more power in this than you think. And if something's not going your way, you hold the cards here. And so, you know, I think if you watch a lot of tarot readings, just ask yourself, and there's nothing wrong with that. Obviously, like, I'm a tarot reader, right? And I consume tarot readings myself. They're really fun and helpful and comforting, and they have brought so much to my life. They've added so much value to my life personally, and I'm sure they've added a lot of value to your life as well. But ask yourself, are you misusing it? And I've done that myself. And I feel like especially if you're new to tarot, it's easy to fall into that trap. Don't feel like so much is fated or so much is outside of your control. You do still have free will. And you have a right to exercise that. And in fact, Spirit supports that. So don't feel like life is happening to you all the time. Is it? Yeah. But you have free will in how you respond to what is happening to you. And there's more power in that than you realize. And I feel like that's also part of where the disconnect is happening. So I think honestly, if we're asking, why didn't this work out? The lesson here was to help you understand how to empower yourself, how to use your free will to, I guess, its maximum capacity, to its maximum potential, for you to realize that you can create. And I know with the Magician, we talk about the law of attraction and manifestation, and I know that terminology doesn't resonate with everyone, but ultimately here, whether you buy into that concept or not, the message is still the same. You have the power, you do have the personal power to direct your life in the way that you want to go. And it doesn't have to be at the expense of certain aspects of yourself. You can live a life where your mind, your heart, your soul is on the same page, content and happy. And I feel like an easy example, like if you're getting lost in the sauce here, I'll give an example. A lot of people will choose the career path, right? Where they'll have good insurance, good salary, job security, and that pleases the Queen of Swords. That rational, logical mind is happy. But what if that person has a good salary, has great health benefits, has job security, but they're miserable? They're so miserable. They wake up every morning and cannot wait for the day to end. And that's not sustainable. It's not great for your mental health. Could make you physically unwell after a certain period of time. It's not sustainable. But many people make that compromise they make that choice because they feel like they have to. Because that Queen of Swords energy is so strong. And society tells us even, right? That that's what we should do. But your heart isn't happy. And so that Queen of Cups aspect of yourself that's asking you to look deep within your heart and follow the calling of your soul, or even your Queen of Wands side of yourself that's saying, I need creativity, I need passion in my life, I need to feel like I have a purpose, right? Those parts of yourself almost get pushed into the shadows, right? And to deny such basic, core parts of yourself, that's a hard pill to swallow. But so many people make that, I guess, almost like judgment call, right? And they think it has to be a choice. They think they can't have these different aspects of themselves all be within harmony. And Spirit is saying you can. You don't have to feel like you have to choose one part of yourself to the detriment to the other parts. You can have this integration of self where these different aspects of you that are all very important to your personality, to your identity, to your soul, you can please these different parts of yourself. It doesn't have to be, I'm choosing my heart over my mind. It doesn't have to be that. Okay? I hope that makes sense. All right, so let's continue forward. Your reading is a little bit more philosophical. We have your hard work is paying off, new moon in Capricorn, and a win-win outcome is forecast, full moon in Libra. I love to see this because this to me is really summarizing what we've been talking about so far. A win-win can happen, or in this case, a win-win-win. So it can happen, okay? You can please these different competing sides to yourself. And I think part of this too is remembering these are your strengths, because it feels like almost like a ball and chain, like I wish this was enough. I wish this thing was enough for me. But it's not. Even if part of you is sitting there thinking, I should be happy, and almost mad at yourself that you're not, you have to honor how you feel. And don't feel like your dissatisfaction with whatever this is, because you are dissatisfied. Don't feel like that's you being ungrateful. Your feeling about this is trying to tell you something really important. Your mind is trying to your subconscious is trying to tell you something really important. What you feel in your gut is trying to tell you something really important. Listen to your body. How do you feel? Those are all different aspects of you that are trying to send you a message about this. Okay? And I've done this to myself before, you know, like I've had a good paying job, good health benefits. It was easy enough. It was fine. But I wasn't happy. And I kept telling myself I should be happy, but I wasn't. And you can't force that feeling. And for some of you, you know, it could be a romantic situation. You could be with someone who is faithful, someone who's honest, someone who on paper looks like a really good partner. But you're not happy, you're just not feeling it. And you can't force a feeling. So this could be many things, but I think if you're beating yourself up and thinking, I should be more grateful, I should appreciate what I have. No, not in this situation. It may be good in some aspects. Your situation is not as terrible as Group 1's. Group 1's thing, like, needed to go yesterday. Like, it just was horrible situation. Your situation doesn't feel so bad, but it's like if I spent enough time in this, it would kill my soul. You know, like it would force me to deny certain aspects of my identity, or force me to deny certain desires that I have for a reason. And so it's holding you back. And it's not in the interest of your highest good. So let's go back to the love example. Let's say on paper, this romantic partner seems perfect. They're so good to you. You feel like you should be happy. And so you stay. And maybe your family really likes them. Maybe your friends tell you how lucky you are. Maybe you're afraid of getting back out there and dating again. And you're like, what if I never find somebody better? And all that, right? But you don't feel that passion. That Queen of Wands aspect of you is not happy. You don't feel emotionally connected to this person. That Queen of Cups aspect of you is not happy. But the Queen of Swords aspect is saying, yeah, this is good. This is a stable, reliable person. We should stick with this. This feels safe. This feels good. Mentally, this feels okay. Intellectually, we're compatible. Let's just stick with it. over time, that Queen of Cups and that Queen of Wands energy is gonna override. And if you think about it, if you're not really feeling it yourself, that other person may be having those exact same hang-ups. They may not be expressing it to you either. They may be lying to themselves. But if you're not feeling it, that soul connection, they're probably not feeling it either. And they may have their own reasons for, accepting things as they are. Right? So ultimately, if you were to walk away from it, or if this has already ended, it was actually in their highest good too, a win-win. Because if you weren't really invested in it, or if you were in it because it felt safe or it felt okay for the moment, that wasn't really fair to them in the long run either, was it? So there's something to be said for being true to yourself. And you are a dynamic, complicated individual, just the same as most people, right? It doesn't matter if a part of you really, really loves something if the rest of you isn't committed and invested. It's not good enough just to mentally be okay with something. Your heart has to feel in it. And I know I'm talking about this like it's the Queen of Swords aspect of you that was holding on to it, and maybe that's because for most of you that's what it was. For others of you though, it could be flipped. It could be that you impulsively, with the Queen of Wands, committed to something, and then you felt like, oh, I don't want to change my mind. I don't want people to think I'm a flake, but emotionally this doesn't feel right, or this isn't working out practically like I thought it would. Maybe this wasn't my best decision, but your pride's getting in the way. Queen of Wands is associated with fire sign energy. As a Leo, I can tell you pride will get in your way. Pride will keep you stuck in things that you know are never ever going to be sustainable. So just ask yourself, what's keeping me here? If you're still stuck in it, what's keeping you there? And if you're on the other side of it and this thing has ended, know that this is why it ended. Because you can't please one aspect of yourself to the detriment of everything else that you need. It's not okay for just some of your needs to be met. And in life, there are always going to be some things that, we may not like about certain things, Nothing is ever going to be perfect, but you can't deny sort of like your core values or your core desires. And that's what this feels like. It feels like something very integral to your identity was being suppressed or repressed. Okay. All right. I'm probably repeating myself too much at this point. Okay, we have surprise. We have teacher, share your knowledge. Oh, I love that. And we have grace, everyone is connected. Okay, with this grace card here, again, if you are having any sort of guilt about this, like if this thing ending or this thing not working out has affected or is going to affect other people, know that ultimately, even if there's some pushback, it's in the highest good or in the best interest of all parties involved. Okay, so I'll give an example here. When I was working for the substance use clinic, the second one, I had put in my 2-week notice, and my original supervisor, wanted me to stay, but was ultimately understanding, asked if there was anything, that could be done differently to get me to stay. And I was like, I'm graduating with my master's. I really want to have an opportunity to work with other social workers. At the clinic, I worked with LPCs. Those are licensed professional counselors. And I just wanted an opportunity to work with other social workers and use my degree. And so that was the decision that I made. My new immediate supervisor, who I didn't know well at all, they had only been there like a month, they were so angry at me Like, they were just, I've never been, I can't say never because something happened this past week that was really unprofessional, but up until that point in time, I had never been spoken to in such a disrespectful way in a professional environment. And I had had no prior run-ins or issues with this person, and they really didn't know me well at all. And the things that they were saying, I was just floored. I couldn't believe they were saying those things to me, and I was not expecting that level of anger just for me putting in my 2-week notice. And they had brought up this like point that essentially they were saying, we're really short-staffed. How could you do this? How could you do this? And I thought to myself, I've been working in this position for 2 years now, and we've always been short-staffed in some capacity. You know, like, how is that my fault? And how do I have an obligation to you right now when, you know, like, I know you're a new supervisor, but the person before you could have appropriately staffed the clinic. Like, that's not on me. And so ultimately, even if that supervisor couldn't see it at the time, if I'm at a point in my career where I feel like I've learned everything that I could and it's time for me to move on and do some good elsewhere, I should move on. Especially working in the mental health field, you shouldn't be in a position where you don't feel connected or you don't feel passionate about the work. You'll get burned out. And so I felt like, you know, it's better for you all to hire someone and get someone in this position who does still feel passionate about this, who does feel like they can learn something from this job. I feel like I've gotten everything I can get out of it. And I feel like I've given everything I can give to it. It's time for me to move on. And I have a right to do that. I have a right to progress in my career and not feel guilty about it. And I think, you know, if something like that has happened to you with this situation where you've been met with pushback or someone was really angry with you. So if it's a romantic situation and, you know, you broke up with the person and they're really, really angry with you about it, they may not see it or recognize it in this moment, but you did them a favor. If your heart wasn't in it, you did them a favor, because now they can go and meet someone who is going to be fully invested and in it for the right reasons, right? You did them a favor, even though it doesn't feel like it in the moment. And so, yeah, it may have been inconvenient for her to have to interview new candidates and train somebody new. But, you know, like, that's just how it goes sometimes, right? Now, with this teacher card, there could be an aspect to this situation where you will have an opportunity in the future to advise someone or help someone else who is going through a similar situation. So that may come up in your future, that may be far off into your future, it may happen next week, but there may be a point in time where someone else comes to you. And remember this reading, you know, if this happens and you'll say, okay, I went through this so I can help someone else. And that really happens a lot in life. I mean, and it's such a special, good feeling when that happens. When you have someone come to you and pour out their heart or come to you with a problem and you know exactly what to say to them because you've been there yourself, that's a really cool feeling. And I'm excited for you that is probably on the horizon with this teacher card. With surprise, there's going to be something good that comes out of this that is really unexpected. And Spirit's not saying a word more about it, but there's something really, really good in store for you that I would say get excited about, okay? All right, let's see. We have Escapist, come home to yourself. I feel like I don't know, it may have been in group 1, but I feel like I said something to you all about coming home to yourself, but maybe it was group 1. And we also have Villain, you can always rewrite the story. Oh my gosh, this is really making me think about what we were just talking about. Like, that supervisor was very angry with me. And it was shocking, it was surprising. And I've had breakups that have gone like that as well, where I've like left a partnership because, you know, like there was a certain aspect of me that was deeply unhappy, and you know, people's behaviors have consequences, and if you treat someone poorly, they probably will leave you. And it amazes me how sometimes people just don't take accountability. And it's like, well, had you treated me better, things may have gone differently, but you acted the way that you acted. And so I told you I was unhappy, and now I'm gonna leave, because that's what happens. That's how it works out. And it's not like this is new information. I've been saying this. And so there may be something here where you're leaving something behind. You're saying enough is enough. Like, to me, for you all group 2, it doesn't feel like you're being, it feels like you were forced into this decision to leave or to end something. That's what it feels like. It feels like I really, really wanted this to work out. I really, really did. But it's not, you know, and I feel like I have to leave. Like, I can't stay in this. And so it's like, yes, you're making the decision, but it's not a decision that you ever wanted to have to make, or that you were initially thinking you were gonna have to make, right? So could be many things, but like maybe you thought this was gonna be your forever home, or your forever person, or your forever job, and it just didn't work out, okay? And so I think someone in this is villainizing you a bit and trying to make you feel guilty about it, or trying to, I guess, sidestep their own accountability in this and say, well, you know, it's your fault. You didn't do this, or you didn't try hard enough, or I've done this and that. And again, like, I've been just floored sometimes with what the things people come up with. You know, like, you'll be breaking up with someone and they'll be like, I put in all of this effort. And it's like, when did you do that? Like, when have you tried to make this work? I'm curious to know. I want specific examples, please. Take me through it, walk me through it, tell me this story, because I'm curious to know. And then it's lies, you know? So it may be a situation like that. Or you may have been in a circumstance like I was, where your supervisor was just so angry at you that you had the audacity to put in your 2-week notice. So whatever the case may be, don't let them villainize you. Don't let them tell you who you are. Don't fall into whatever narrative they're trying to project on you, because they don't want to take accountability in the situation, or they don't want to take ownership of their part in it. You know, it is what it is at this point. And you have made this decision in your highest good, in your best interest, and Spirit is saying, don't feel guilty about choosing yourself. At the end of the day, no one is going to prioritize your needs, your wants, your happiness, period. Everyone is prioritizing themselves. That's just kind of like, you know, the nature of being a human. And so don't feel guilty about choosing yourself. At the end of the day, it is in everyone's best interest to attend to their needs. And so if there was something about this that was making you deeply dissatisfied, deeply unhappy, that was making you feel not like yourself, it wasn't going to be sustainable anyway. And so for me, it feels like, to me, like you are getting out of this before it turns really, really sour. It's almost like this train that you've been on is running off the track, and it's about to go off the cliff, and you are jumping out at the last minute. You are saving yourself. And I feel like Spirit just really wants to come through very strongly with this message of like, please don't feel guilty about that. Please don't let anyone make you feel like you're a bad person, or you're selfish, or, you know, oh, you are not honoring your commitment here. Don't let anyone make you feel that way, because it's going to end in disaster regardless. So it's better for you to get out now, or you were right to get out when you got out, because it was going to end very, very badly. And with this escapist card, I believe I was discussing with you all about how to use tarot appropriately, and it may not just be tarot, it could be different things in your life, but you may have felt like while this was going on, because for some of you this has ended, for others of you, you may still be in the thick of it. Everyone's on, you know, a different place in their journey, but you may have found that you were using certain things to distract yourself, or just to get clarity, like, I want someone to tell me what to do. And so you may have been using tarot readings in an unhealthy way, or you may have been using certain things that typically are positive, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with tarot, but you may have been listening to music too much, playing video games too much, shopping online too much, reading too much. Like, you may have been doing something to just escape your reality, because the reality of the situation was, again, just so bad for you that you needed to just get out of your own mind for a little while. And so I think a positive benefit to this ending is that you no longer feel the need to escape your own life. You no longer feel the need to distract yourself so much because your day-to-day circumstances are unbearable. Because again, like, a core part of yourself was just being pushed down, and you can't live your life not feeling true to who you are and to your heart and to your desires and your dreams and your wishes and your hopes, right? You can't walk around fulfilling someone else's role. You know, like, it feels like, to me, the energy here is like, if life is a play and someone casted you in the role of the villain and you're walking around and you're trying to fulfill that role, and of course it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel good. And you're like, I'm meant to be the hero of this story. Come on now. So you're coming back home to yourself. Okay. We have change here. Pretty appropriate. And we have move. This card always reminds me of that saying, like, if you don't like where you are, move, you're not a tree. Like, don't feel afraid. Don't feel guilty. Don't feel bad. You gotta jump out of that train before it goes overboard. You know, like, you gotta save yourself sometimes. And if anyone else has a problem with that, maybe they need to take a look at themselves and ask why they feel the need to have so much control over your life, why they feel the need to assert themselves as the expert on your life and what you should be doing, and why aren't they more focused on themselves, that sort of thing. I mean, you really know what's best for you more than anyone. And that's actually something that they teach, because my master's is in social work, and I had a focus in mental health and trauma, and that's something that they teach in the course of, like, learning how to do therapy, is the patient or the client is always the expert. Don't feel as the therapist you are in the role of the expert. You are not, right? And so I think that applies to life as well. Like, if there's any sort of person who's being like a dominating force in your life, or if you've been using tarot as a way to, again, like, avoid certain decisions, you are still the expert of your life. You know what is going to bring you happiness or emotional fulfillment or a sense of contentment or a sense of rightness better than anyone. So I think, again, like, it's just a repeating message, like, don't second guess yourself so much. Trust yourself. And I think for you all, trusting in spirit or trusting in the divine comes a lot easier than trusting yourself. And that's part of the issue here, and why we were discussing this concept of you having this spiritual up-leveling, because there needs to be an understanding. Just as we were talking about you integrating these different parts of yourself, there needs to be an understanding that you are already connected to source. You are already, there's no line between you and the divine. Like, you are connected, you are one with God, spirit, the universe, like, whatever terminology resonates with you, you are already connected. And that's why when you choose what is in the highest good for you, it radiates outwards. So that's not selfish. That's actually helpful to to the collective when you choose what is best for you. It may not feel like it to others in that moment, but ultimately it is of the highest good. And, you know, I feel like Spirit really wants you to trust in yourself the way you trust in them. You know, there needs to be a sense here or an understanding that you are connected to Source. Like, there is no separation here. You carry that energy within you. Okay? So this says, a resistance to change is a resistance to life itself. Open your heart and mind to new beginnings. I mean, yeah. And I think this is hinting at this surprise again. So I'm very excited for you all to find out like what that is. But I think if something new and unexpected comes into your life, be open to that surprise, be open to that curveball. And it says, a long walk is good for the soul. Get outside and allow Mother Nature to lift your spirits. I do feel that could help you sort of in that integration process, just getting into a space where it's quiet, where there's not so much outside chatter, where you aren't, again, I think seeking things externally from yourself to tell you what to do. Whether it's a tarot reading, a close friend, a mentor, like sometimes it benefits us to stop asking for advice and to just go within and get quiet and really meet ourselves, come back home to ourselves and find out what it is that we want. Because, I mean, when you get advice from other people, they're speaking from their perspective. And they're speaking from what they would want if they were you, right? And that's assuming that the person you're getting advice from doesn't have their own motivations going into the conversation, right? Which is rare. You know, even people who want the best for us sometimes, and I hate to say this, but it's true, sometimes people want us to do well, but they don't want us to do better than them. And I know that may sound cynical, but it is true. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Okay. So any last thoughts, any last question that you have, go ahead and think about it. If you need to pause the reading, go ahead and do so. We're gonna roll the die and we'll get an answer to your question. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's go ahead and do it. Just be very clear now with what your question is in your mind. Okay, group 2. Answer to their question, group 2, please, Spirit. Okay, we got yes. All right, group 2, this was your reading. I hope that you found it helpful. I hope it was enjoyable. I hope it brought you comfort if you needed it. I'm wishing you the very, very best, and I will see you in my next one. Welcome to your reading. So I'd like to say a huge thank you to the subscriber who suggested this topic. I will say group 3, I was waiting for someone to get the Tower, and I believe you're the first group to get the Tower. So we have the Tower, we have the Devil card. I know, what a start. We have the Ace of Wands, we have the 8 of Pentacles, we have the 2 of Pentacles, the Ace of Cups, and the Chariot. Okay. I need to know, group 3, what the tea is, because you all, man, this was never something that was gonna work out. And if you've had any sort of regret, any sort of grief about this, honor how you feel and know that it's okay to go through that grieving process, but also know that there was absolutely nothing about this that was meant to last. It wasn't anything, and group 1 had a similar message, but there was nothing you could do to have changed the outcome here. This was something that was really, this was something that was always going to hurt you in some capacity. This was something that was keeping you chained. This was something that was keeping you in a very limited space. This was something that was preventing your growth. This was something that was standing in the way of a lot of abundance, okay? It was almost like this thing became an energetic block. So whatever it was in your life, and I know all of you are asking about something different here, but whatever it was something that was almost preventing all of this new energy that was sort of just knocking on the door, like begging to be let in. But as long as this thing was existing in your life, it was always going to be a block. And I'm sorry if you hear Gracie eating. She's having her lunch. But yes, and with the Devil card here, maybe you did stay in it longer than you should have. And maybe for a lot of you, you weren't in a position or you were too afraid to walk away. Group 1 felt like a choice. Group 2 felt like they were backed into a corner and they had to make that choice. For you, group 3, it feels like, and this may not be for all of you, but for many of you, it feels like Spirit forced your hand. With the Tower being next to the Devil, essentially this is saying with the Devil card, you were willingly keeping yourself chained to this. You may not have felt like it. You may have convinced yourself out of fear that you had to stay in it for whatever reason, but we knew better and we knew that you were capable of more. And so it's been an act of tough love here, but we had to cut the cord. We had to cut this energetic cord. It could not stay. It could not stand. It was blocking you from your blessings. Ace of Wands, Ace of Cups, these are gifts from the divine. So yes, we took this away from you. Yes, we destroyed it. We cleared it out. We did what had to be done. Because quite honestly, you were not stepping up. And I've been in that situation myself. Like don't feel like this is any way a judgment thing, but I've been in that situation myself where my pride was keeping me stuck in something. I was afraid of the financial outcome, and so I stayed. And I stayed in something that was just so horrible for me. I can't even put it into words how horrible it was, but I stayed, and it was miserable, but it was the devil that I knew. And the devil that we know, as awful as it may be, is still our comfort zone. And so the blessings that are wanting to come in, sorry, I feel like that is so loud. Let me take off her necklace here, her collar. Certain like water dishes that she has like hits her little tag and then it makes that noise. Okay. So yes, our comfort zone, the devil that we know. And so it's blocking your blessings. So these blessings with the Ace of Wands, adventure, passion, new opportunities, opportunities for you to creatively express yourself, opportunities for you to have more passion in your life. Again, whether that's like a creative pursuit, whether that's physical, emotional intimacy with another person, better friendships. Ace of Wands, a chance to travel, a chance to relocate, a chance for you to be the artist of your own life. That's a major blessing that was being blocked. Ace of Cups, self-love, loving friendships, better relationships with your family, a new romantic partner, a better connection to spirit, more self-love. I may have already said that, but it probably bears repeating. This was being blocked. And I mean, see how this person here, and you may not be able to see it that well. Let me see if I can pull it. Yeah, this little person here running across these gears. You're capable of so much more than you give yourself credit for. And that's a big part of what this was this feeling of like manipulation. This feeling of limiting yourself or buying into this narrative that someone else has sold you that you're not good enough, that you're not meant for anything better, that this is the best that you could ever hope for. And it is really manipulative. And for some of you as well, I mean, this could have been a certain behavior of yours that was fueling this sort of stuck feeling. So any sort of acts of codependency, whether it was on some other person, whether it was on a substance, whether it was on a behavior like gambling or shopping or looking to things outside of yourself for comfort because you didn't know how to soothe yourself. So this could have been affecting you in many different ways. But it was really hurting your self-esteem. And it was making you feel almost like just in this victim role. And feeling like a martyr, you know? And with the Chariot here, typically with the Chariot, it talks about, you know, like being in the driver's seat, free will, on the road to success, making a big decision. Whereas here, and I didn't use this deck for any other group, so this feels significant, but you see all of these workers like having to drag this big chariot and the ringmaster and like this person here just chilling, right? So like feeling like a slave to this, you know? And how miserable is that? Again, like feeling chained with the devil. And so this whole situation not working out, this whole situation crumbling before your eyes, probably in a very dramatic fashion if it's the Tower. But this whole entire situation ultimately is so that you can stop being down here. You can get back in this chariot. You can get rid of the forces in your life, or Spirit is doing it for you, that are manipulating you. So this could have been a boss, you know, who was really overbearing and that was making you feel like you were incompetent, like you weren't worth anything, like you could never do better, so you should just be happy to even have a job. Could be a parent, a romantic partner, whoever was manipulating you. And for some of you, it may have been your own self-doubt, but whoever was manipulating you into thinking you were never going to be up here. You're never going to be in control. You're never going to be able to choose better for yourself. Whatever force in your life was convincing you that you didn't deserve these blessings, that these blessings could never be a reality for you, that's being cleared away. And with the Eight of Pentacles, you are so much more competent, you are so much more capable than you have ever given yourself credit for. So some of you may feel unlovable, and so you think you can never have a happy, healthy, lasting connection, whether it's with a friend or a romantic partner or whatever. And that's a lie. That's a false narrative that you have been taught and you have subconsciously taken on. For others of you, it could be some insecurity around like your intelligence or your ability to take on like a leadership role. Like I myself, like I used to struggle so much with public speaking. I was terrified. I wouldn't even, like when I was younger, I wouldn't talk to cashiers. I wouldn't talk to like a server at a restaurant. I had so much fear of public speaking that even someone just taking my order was like terrifying. And I mean, that absolutely 100% like came from my childhood and, you know, the way that I was raised and all that. But we take on those beliefs, those things that people say about us, and we start to believe that it's true. And we start to believe those are our own thoughts. But really, you know, we've just subconsciously absorbed these things. And obviously now I have no trouble with public speaking. So like that was something that I thought I would never overcome. That was like my biggest, deepest fear. And it's not an issue anymore. And it's hard for me now to even remember why it was a problem for me to begin with. And I never would have thought that. If you had told me that when I was a teenager, I never would have believed you. And so I think through all of this, group 3, the coolest thing about this is how you're going to surprise yourself. When you see this tower crumble, whatever it is, whatever is being removed from your life, whatever you're being pushed out of, you are going to amaze yourself. How you rebuild after this, how you find your footing after this, how you step up to the plate. So yes, it's so awesome for me to be able to tell you what is on the other side of this are these divine blessings with the Ace of Wands and the Ace of Cups. I'm so glad to deliver that message to you. But even more than that, I'm so excited to tell you how you are going to grow as a person as a result of this and how much you're going to love who you are. And that's the biggest gift out of all of this, is how deeply you will come to appreciate how you handle this, how you overcome this, and the person that you're going to become is going to be a version of yourself that you thought could probably only exist in your mind. And that's the coolest thing about all of this, at least for me as your tarot reader today. Okay, let's see. We have hold your vision, fixed moon. You have a right to be stubborn. You have a right to be stubborn. Another group got this message, but don't let anyone tell you or make you feel like you have to settle. And especially don't say that to yourself. Don't do that to yourself. And whoever this devil card energy was in your life, whether it was your own subconscious or whether it was an actual person in your life or multiple people, don't let anyone make you feel like you're not good enough or you're not deserving enough of the things that you want. Okay? Work through your fears, new moon in Scorpio. This entire thing, I mean, Scorpio carries the energy of the death card, right? Deep personal transformation and healing. That is what is on the other side of this. And so, I mean, you're like a little Pokemon, you know, like you're evolving here. You're up leveling. You're shedding some old skin. It's a rebirth, right? It's like that Selena Gomez song, like, I'm under self-restoration. I'm becoming my own salvation. I could be getting the lyrics wrong, but I mean, it's like, I mean, Spirit's pushing you out of this tower, right? But you're going to save yourself. And Spirit, you know, it kind of, you know how certain parents will, you know, not put training wheels on the bike or will throw someone into the deep end and say, listen, you better learn how to swim. You're going to learn the hard way. That's kind of what this feels like to me. Like, You know what? You've been standing on the edge of that pool for a really, 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 really long time. And you know what, group 3? We're starting to think you're never going to jump in. So we're going to push you. You're going to be mad that we pushed you. You're going to feel hurt, betrayed. You're going to feel like the universe has really screwed you over on this one. But if we didn't push you, you never would have jumped. And guess what? When you get in that water, you're going to surprise yourself with how strong of a swimmer you are. And we want you to have that feeling. We want you to experience that. We want to see you save yourself. Because you're more than capable of doing that. And it's gonna go from the lowest of low for you to the highest of high. And you have the most dramatic reading today. You do. But that's not surprising because you got the Tower next to the Devil. Holy smokes. It's a big deal. This is a big thing. But you are bigger than this. And you have to have that understanding. Confidence is your key to success. You might have to fake it till you make it. And that's okay. It's okay. I kind of got this message a little bit in another reading, but it's almost like you were the understudy. But like, let's say your life is a play and there's someone else who has taken on your role, someone else who has taken your spot, and you're the understudy. And so only if something happens to that person will you get on stage. And you're content to be the understudy because you think you're not good enough to be a lead. You don't think you're good enough to step out on that stage. And whoever has taken the spot that's meant to be yours, they're telling you, oh no, you're meant to be the understudy. You need to stay down there. You're not good enough to come up here. You need to stay down there. You need to stay behind the curtains. So then that Tower moment happens and you're forced out on the stage and you now have to be the lead. And you feel like, oh man, I never learned my lines. I didn't think I was ever going to have to step out on this stage. I was happy being the understudy. I was happy. You weren't. Someone else was taking up your spot. This is your spot. You have a right to be here. You have a right. You were incarnated into this lifetime for a reason. You were meant to be here. So it's time to participate. It's time to step up. It's time to fulfill your soul's purpose. It's time to be in alignment. It's time to receive your blessings. It's time. And we're sorry that you were fed all of this BS about you not being good enough. And we're sorry you don't feel up to it. But you were never going to feel up to it if you kept consuming that old narrative and kept believing that you deserved to be hidden away. And so you may not know all of your lines. It may feel uncomfortable. You may have to fake it till you make it. You may have to ad-lib a bit. You may have to wing it. You may have to act like you feel confident and up to it, even when inside alarm bells are going off and you feel so insecure. But eventually, you're going to start to believe it. If you could convince yourself that you weren't good enough, you can convince yourself that you are more than capable. You just got to start telling yourself a different story. And so I think positive affirmations are going to help you. And I know that it may feel cheesy, it may feel uncomfortable, but it's going to help you. You have to tell yourself a different story. Because listening to other people has not served you well. I don't know who in your life wants to keep you down, but somebody has. And I'm sorry for that. But I mean, this entire thing is, you got this. And I know it doesn't feel like it, and I know it feels like everything is, I mean, I've been through tower moments in my life, and if someone said you got this, I've been like, well, respectfully, like, F off for right now, because I don't feel that way. Like, it's hard. It's hard. But you know what? If you can believe in yourself, it's probably one of the hardest things you'll ever have to do. Because most things in life is a question of whether you think you can or you can't. It's not about your actual competency. It's about whether you believe that you can. And I may have shared this with you all before, but my great-grandmother, she would always say, can't, never, could. And that always stuck with me, probably because she said it to me a million times. But if I ever came to her and complained, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this, she would always say to me, can't, never, could. You haven't even tried. So you know what? You're right. If you're standing here and saying, I can't do this, and you haven't even attempted it, you're right. You can't, because you've already made up your mind that you're going to fail. And so it's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. And guess what? You may try it and you may fail, but that doesn't mean you can't try again, right? It doesn't mean that you can't make certain adjustments. It doesn't mean that you can't take a different approach. And so a lot of it is your attitude and your relationship to yourself. And that's always going to be the most important relationship in your life, right? Is your connection to yourself. And that's your connection to the divine ultimately. Because you really do have to have this feeling of like, if I try my best and it doesn't work out, then it wasn't meant for me. And I trust in the divine to lead me to what is meant for me. And that's okay. And I'm not going to take that as a personal failure because I did my best. Now, if I do my best and it works out, awesome. This is meant for me. That's such a great feeling. But either way, you're okay, right? You don't have to take these things that don't work out, these tower moments, as I'm worthless, I'm horrible, I'm terrible, and nothing's ever going to work out for me because I'm not good enough. That's a false narrative. But if you believe it, it will become true. Because that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So just remember, can't, never, could. Okay? And like I said, I was told that a million times in my childhood. So that was something I had to learn the hard way for sure. Okay. And my great-grandma passed away just shy of her 100th birthday. So she was doing something right. Okay, we have aloof, seek non-attachment. We have wisdom, let your light shine. We have innocence, look through fresh eyes. And we have assertive, take your place at the table. I will say this, and this isn't related to your reading, but when I was a kid, I would always beg my great-grandmother, please live until you're 100. Please live until you're 100. Because when you're a kid, 100 seems like a really big number. And it seems like it's never going to, you know what I mean? It's never going to come to pass. And, if she lives to 100, that's like living for forever. And she would always tell me, I don't want to live till 100. I refuse to live until 100. And I said, well, you don't know that. You could live until 100. And I would always try to argue with her about it because I want her to live for forever because she's my great-grandma and I love her. And she was like a mom to me. And she always said, very stubbornly, I am not living until 100. I don't want to. And she kept true to that promise. She did not make it to 100. She was very adamant about that. And she passed away just before her birthday. And I was like, you know what? She told me. It was always funny. I always try to find humor in things. And I was like, she kept her word on that. She told me. I can't be mad at her for that. She told me she was not sticking around to her 100th birthday. Okay. All right. Take your place at the table. This is my favorite card for you. Because you have a right. You have a right. Again, you have a right to be here. You are not a burden. You are not a burden. Some of you have really, really struggled, I think, with your self-worth. And I think for a lot of you, it comes from whoever, and it may be multiple people, but whatever has been fueling that devil card energy in your life, has been making you feel like you're not worth it, like you're not good enough, like you're a failure. Just really negative attributes that you could, attach to yourself that just aren't true. And so I think a lot of this is coming to pass so that you can start to value yourself, so that you can start to recognize your strengths, so that you can awaken to what those strengths are if you're not sure. And I think also so that you can separate yourself from those negative forces, whether it be a person or a circumstance, but so that you can separate yourself from those influences that tell you that you're not good enough. Because I do think for a lot of you, you need separation. You need time to heal. You need to have the space to breathe and to connect to your own energy and to find time to appreciate yourself without those negative influences trying to, pull you back and tell you that you're not good enough. And even the wisdom card says, let your light shine. Like awakening to how incredible you are, group 3, and what you have to offer. And you have so much to give to yourself, and you have so much value that you can add to the world. And it's such a shame that anyone has made you feel lesser than. And with this innocence card, for some of you, this goes back to childhood. It really does. And so I think for many of you, it's going to be an entire healing process. And looking back at certain things that have happened in your life with a fresh perspective. And I heard this once in a reading where the reader was describing how you can go back and almost visualize hugging your younger self, or hugging a past version of yourself and saying, like, thank you for doing the best that you could. Thank you for surviving this. And having appreciation for your younger self, or giving to your younger self what should have been given by a parent or a caregiver but wasn't. And saying, you know what, you deserved better. And having compassion for those past versions of yourself, but also gratitude because they got you to this point, and how that could be an exercise in self-love. And I think honestly that could be really beneficial for you if you could visualize that. And I've done it myself, and it is very healing. So I definitely recommend that if it's something that resonates with you. Just having that visualization, or if you're someone who struggles with visualization, maybe try like writing a letter to yourself, or if you're like musically inclined, like finding a song to kind of like dedicate to your past self that you can listen to as a way of like expressing gratitude to your past self or your younger self. Just find a way to do it where it clicks with you. But I think that could be helpful, because I think there needs to be almost like an apology, or there needs to be just a healing and reconnection to your younger self, and an acknowledgement that they did the best that they could under those circumstances with the knowledge that they had at the time and where they were at. And instead of judging your past self or being angry with your past self, or, again, like just having compassion for yourself. We have stars. You can manifest every wish. We have evil queen. You deserve sugar, not salt. And we have feast. Slow down and celebrate yourself. Okay, a lot of important messages here. With the stars card here, for some of you, you're dreaming too small. There's an energy of accepting what is given to you and being too afraid to ask for more, or feeling like you don't deserve to ask for more. And for some of you, it could be that you feel like it would be greedy to ask for more, or you feel like it's not achievable, so let me dream smaller. And I feel like Spirit is really encouraging you to kind of revisit your childhood self a little bit. And what did your childhood self want? What did your younger self want? And how have you become disconnected from that over time? How can you get back to that sort of innocent, fresh look at the world where you see so many possibilities? How can you stop limiting yourself? How can you start to recognize that you do deserve more? And with this Evil Queen card here, I really feel like this is going back to that Devil card energy and how we were talking about there being at least one really negative influence in your life, and that feeding into, you know, why this thing that you're asking about didn't work out. What was that tower moment all about? You were sold sugar when it was salt. You were manipulated. You were lied to. People or the situation, circumstance was presenting itself as something that was going to be really good, but was actually really terrible. So this could have been a romantic partner who made you feel safe and made you feel really good, but then over time you saw the ways that they were manipulating you, and maybe they were cheating on you, or, you know, having this false mask in the relationship where they tricked you into thinking they were a good person when really they were hurting you and hurting your self-esteem and making you feel worthless, and, you know, trying to keep you sort of under their foot, under their thumb. So under their thumb is the expression, not underfoot. Anyway, and you know, again, this could be talking about many different things. I'm not going to try to guess because I know all of you are asking about different things, but I'm trying to give examples to give context. But yeah, so if you are still mourning that tower, if you still feel tied to it in some ways, honor how you feel, but keep it in your mind that that thing may have looked really good from the outside, but it's like Snow White, right? Like it's a poisoned apple. It's not good. It was rotten. No matter how it looked from the outside, it was rotten. And with Feast here, this is kind of going back to how I was saying, like, appreciate the past versions of yourself that got you to this point. Be grateful to them. Be grateful that you have survived all that you have, because, I mean, you're a survivor. And people, again, like, may put you in this box of being a victim or a martyr, or, you know, try to downplay your strength, but there's something to be said for just living through something and having the courage to get up every single day and do the best that you can to make it through. And that's why I always feel like so defensive and protective over like Cinderella and that whole story, because I always felt, and I may have gone on this rant before in a previous reading, and if you've heard me talk about this before, just know you're getting consistent messages then. But I mean, like, what do people expect Cinderella to do? I mean, she is being emotionally abused. She's being exploited for her labor. She's exhausted from sun up to sundown, exhausted every single day. Who can think when they're that tired? What agency does she have? She doesn't have any money. Where is she supposed to go? And if she leaves, how is she going to take care of all of those animals? Because she has such a close relationship to them. If I was in a bad situation, I wouldn't leave behind my cat. So I don't expect her to leave behind Bruno or all the little mice that she takes care of. I mean, she can't. And she has no agency, like no money. This is not modern times. Like, this is a fairy tale. How is she supposed to support herself? Was she supposed to just go and be homeless on the street? And she has a right to be in her dead father and her dead mother's house. That's her house. And then, I mean, she's very clearly, again, being emotionally abused here. She has her dead mother's dress ripped off of her body. That's a Disney movie and that happens. That's crazy, right? And to judge that is victim blaming. You wouldn't judge someone, or at least I hope you wouldn't, if they were a victim of domestic violence or something like that. And I'm sorry, I should have given a trigger warning, but I'll try, if I can remember, I'll try to put that on the screen. But yes. So you may encounter that. People may judge you or say like, well, why didn't you leave? Why didn't you get out sooner? Why did you stick around? Why didn't you do X, Y, and Z? It's so much easier for other people to say, you should do this. But they haven't walked in your shoes. They haven't lived your life. They haven't had that experience. They have no room. And I mean, I've been through that in my life. I've had people tell me what they think I should have done about certain things. And it's like, well, hindsight is always 20/20. And isn't it easy for you as an outside observer to tell me what I should have done? I could do the same thing about your life too. So if anyone is lacking in compassion towards you, or is victim blaming, or is making you feel lesser than when you have survived something incredible and you are so strong, please do not adopt that narrative. Please do not accept that as your truth. Please don't pay any mind to it. If it upsets you, that's understandable, but don't buy into that story. Don't buy into it. In fact, you should be applauding yourself for getting through this and being really proud of yourself that you endured it and that you're out of it. And thank you, universe, for helping me get out of this. Because we all go through at least one tower moment in our life. All of us get our Saturn return at least once if we live long enough. All of us go through it. Okay? So if anyone is lacking in compassion towards you, that is a deficit on their part and says more about them than it does about you, okay? All right. So we have invitation. It says, the words you speak are an invitation to life, a request to bring energy into form. Choose your words carefully. I feel like this is speaking to that idea that we were talking about before, about what story you're telling yourself. And how are you speaking about yourself? What is your internal dialogue? And being very mindful of that. Because, again, I think self-worth is an issue here. And I think it's because of that devil card, you know, that influence in your life that was trying to keep you down, that was trying to keep you feeling like you couldn't do any better for yourself. And so I think, again, positive affirmations are going to be a really good tool for self-empowerment for you, okay? We have reassess. You have the right to change your mind. Yes, you do. Don't ever, I mean, if there's ever a situation, even in the future, that you feel like you want to change your mind on, that you want to walk away from, don't let anyone make you feel bad about that. You have a right to change your mind. And that doesn't make you a quitter. That doesn't make you a failure in any way. And sometimes there's a lot of strength in walking away. Okay? And then we have passion here. It says, light up your life by honoring your deepest desires. For you, I feel like it's an acknowledgement here that you're worthy and deserving of your deepest desires. And with the Ace of Cups and the Ace of Wands, I feel like those again are the blessings that are coming into your life as a result of this tower. Okay? All right. So if there's any lingering question for you, something that we haven't answered, I'm going to roll the die now and we'll get your answer. If you need to pause the reading, go ahead and do so. Just make sure you have the question very clear in your mind. Or actually, if you just want to write it down, you can do that as well. But I'm going to go ahead and roll the die and then we'll see what answer you get. Group 3, answer to their question, please, Spirit. Group 3. Okay, we got no. It's funny because we have this 4-leaf clover and we have the question mark, but every group today got a very clear answer, and you got no. All right, group 3, this was your reading. I'm wishing you the very, very best. My heart goes out to you. You definitely had, I think, the roughest reading today, but things are definitely looking up for you, and I'm very excited for all the blessings that are going to be coming into your life, and I'm very happy that you're going to have a better relationship and appreciation for yourself as well. So group 3, please take care of yourself, and I will hopefully see you in my next one. Best of luck to you.